What's up, gaming heroes? Welcome back to another awesome World of Warcraft video. In today's video, we're going to be going over the Outlaw Rogue rotation and just a couple of really simple and basic tips that will help you become a better Outlaw Rogue in both Mythic Plus and raiding. I should say raiding first and Mythic Plus second, because we're looking at the raiding stuff first and the Mythic Plus second. So first is first, before we even get into the rotation, I just want to make sure you guys have got a weak auras activated. It is so helpful as a rogue to have weak auras here in raiding. It just allows you to keep track of your adrenaline rush, your health, your energy management, your combo point management, your slice and dice, between the everything like that with one simple look. So if say this guy's the boss, I can keep track of his health, his percentage, his actual health, my energy, everything like that. It's all near the center of the screen. I'd probably have my screen about there so I can still see any AoE on the floor. Everything you need is right there, guys. It's super simple, and that's the way you realistically should have your screen prepared for raiding to do the most optimal damage you can. Okay, to get the weak auras, it's really simple. Download an add-on called Weak Auras. Type in Weak Auras and then install Weak Auras. Once you've done that, go to the description of this video and I will put this link here where you can download a Devlin Rogue, and this is basically what I've got in a nutshell, this central one here. If you're Assassination or Subtlety, you can use those too. You go to this website, you click copy weak aura import string, go over to your weak auras, and I just type in /WA onto the keyboard. Brings up this lovely fantastical box, and simply click import, paste in the information there, and then click import. And it's honestly that quick and easy. You can obviously change the sizes and everything you need, but that's up to you realistically. Past that, obviously you're going to want to make sure you've got a details for your damage, so you can see how much damage you've been doing and stuff like that. That's going to be really helpful. Alright, let's get into the actual video now. Remember to hit the like button to show you appreciate the video and to see the hard work. Now, it's really important for us to look at the conduits, and the reason for that is we need to know what the potency conduit is, which is count the odds. This is so important to have count the odds because it affects your whole rotation when you're starting a fight, especially in raiding. So count the odds basically gives your ambush and your dispatches a chance to proc a roll the bones buff for you, and therefore can increase your damage dramatically as an outlaw rogue. So we really need to make sure we've got count the odds there. Some people do like to use sleight of hand. However, count the odds is going to be a better choice for us for overall DPS. Now, as a Night Fae, I will obviously use Sepsis. But whenever I say Sepsis in the rotation, just put a placeholder for your own Covenant ability, and that should work out all fine. Okay, let's go over to this raiding dummy here. There are two specs you can use, obviously for multi-target fights where there's like lots of ads and everything like that. Marks for Death can be useful in those fights. So do feel free to experiment with that. I'm going to show you the Deeper Stratagem rotation that you will use mostly for single target fights, and then the Mythic Plus type rotation you can use for multi-target fights and raiding as well. Okay, so Deeper Stratagem is just going to be the one we're going to use. I'm not going to argue with anyone as to what's better. I prefer Deeper Stratagem for single target fights, so let's do this. Now, you remember how we quickly discussed the importance of having the sleight of hand conduit? Well, that is super important because what we're effectively going to be doing is proccing our adrenaline rush, which will use the damage increase from your legendary, which gives you 8% damage increase. It will use that damage increase, and we will then roll the bones, ambush, then upon using ambush, immediately vanish again, just so we can hit another ambush, and then we will go into our rotation from there. What that effectively does is it guarantees you get 2 ambushes on straight away, and that gives you quite a high chance of getting some additional roll the bones buffs, and just stacks the odds in your favor for the start of the fight. It can increase your DPS hugely, especially if you get a bad roll the bones to start with. So, for rotation wise, I'll make sure it's shown on the left hand side of the screen right now. But effectively, we're going to be going ahead about 3 seconds before the fight. We will pop Adrenaline Rush, Roll the Bones, Stealth, Ambush, Vanish, Ambush, then go into the rest of our rotation, i.e. use Blade Rush, use Sepsis, Slice and Dice, Between the Eyes, etc, etc. Okay, so that's what we're going to do right now. I'm sorry if I potato and I mess this up at all. It can happen. I'm not using any poisons right now, so I'll stick a poison on right there. Let's stick one poison on. I've not got any buffs, any food buffs, any flasks, or any shenanigans of that nature. It's just poisons we've got on right now. So please don't be please understand that this video right now is me going through the rotation quite slowly so that people can grasp what I'm doing and kind of understand. If you keep an eye on this little box here, this shows you the exact moves and abilities that I'm using in order, so it helps you quite a lot in that regard. Okay, so let's go ahead and 5, 4, 3, 2, roll the bones, adrenaline rush, stealth, ambush, vanish, ambush. Build up your combo points. Between the Eyes, Blade Rush, Sepsis, Sinister Strike, Sinister Strike, Sinister Strike, Slice and Dice, and just keep smashing the buttons down. We were unlucky and we didn't get any additional cooldowns, any additional Roll the Bones perks, but we did get to just get through the rotation nice and smoothly. We're going to go ahead, hit that Roll the Bones. We've got Broad Strokes. Broad Strokes is a really good buff, so we can go ahead and just keep smashing these buffs out now. Between the Eyes, Blade Rush, always got to keep Blade Rush off cooldown, and go ahead and just keep dispatching at every point you can to see if you can get extra buffs from your Roll the Bones. You can go ahead and use a 4 or 5 combo point dispatch, just because of the fact you've got Broad Strokes on, and just hitting another combo point with Broad Strokes is effectively a waste of combo points, and you don't want to be wasting combo points at all. Alright, so the hardest part of the Outlaw Rogue is just getting to understand that whole Roll the Bones, Adrenaline Rush, Stealth, Ambush, Vanish, Ambush, Sinister Strike, Between the Eyes, Blade Rush, Sepsis, etc. So that whole bit is really difficult to just get used to in your head, but once you've got used to it, it makes so much sense. You get 8% damage. Why wouldn't you just hit with 2 cheeky ambushes to start with? It makes complete sense, and as you continue to use dispatch throughout your rotation, that will reduce the cooldown of vanish, so you want to be using vanish all the time to get a cheeky vanish ambush at every point you can. That will really increase your DPS quite dramatically. Okay, so obviously when you're in the fight and raiding, you're going to want to be using your Potion of Phantom Fire. You're going to want to have the Shadow Core Oil. You want to have a dagger in your offhand with a sharpened stone. Go ahead, use your Vitality food or eat the feasts that they provide. It's entirely up to you. I go for Versatility food, and yeah. Okay, so we'll go ahead and actually do a fight right now as if this was the real thing. I like to try and be behind the target if it's possible, so therefore the target can technically parry you less, and you'll just find that there's a slight damage increase as a result of that. Okay, so we don't need to really be stealth, but let's go ahead and do this. 5, 4, 3, 2, we're doing it. We got Broad Strokes, so we don't need to really worry too much about maxing out the combo points. Just getting to about 5 will be absolutely ideal. And save your Roll the Bones for when the cooldown is just about to come off, like in a second. Cooldown about to come off. We pop it, and then we go straight into maxing out the combo points again. As we aren't going to overcap, we can build them right all the way up to 6 at this point and keep just doing this. And when that Vanish comes off cooldown, we want to go ahead and use that. Keep Blade Rush used at all times. If there are multi-targets, make sure you pop your Blade Flurry just before you're going to go ahead and use that. It's always worth doing. And at this point, you just want to be smashing out every dispatch you can. I'm noticing the Vanish is about to come off cooldown. We wait for 40 energy. Vanish, ambush, go straight into your combo again. Get another dispatch on before we get the Between the Eyes reprocced. Excellent. This is perfect. And we're just about to come to the point where Slice and Dice needs to be renewed. Go ahead and Adrenaline Rush and just keep smashing out that damage. It should be absolutely perfect. Okay, there we go, guys. So as I say, it's a lot harder to do DPS whilst you're really trying to focus on commentating exactly what you're doing. But effectively, that is what you're going to be doing in the raids, is just capping down your resources and making sure that these are constantly being used at every opportunity you can. The only exception is roll the bones. You need to learn, this is your due diligence as a rogue. You need to learn what is a valuable buff and what is a bad buff. You do not want to constantly be pressing roll the bones and then pressing it the second you can, because what if you have like 5 buffs here right now? What if you have 6? What if you have 6 buffs right now? Are you going to press roll the bones for like 1 buff? No, you're going to lose 30 seconds of huge amounts of DPS just because you want to press a button. No, no, no. We're going to leave those buffs up and we're going to absolutely smash the keyboard until we have the top DPS in the raid. That's what's going to happen, okay? Now, that is a really important thing to do. Roll the bones, only press that when you need to refresh a buff, okay? If you've got a good buff up, keep the good buff up. If you've got 2 buffs up, keep the 2 good buffs up. If you've just got a really bad buff, refresh it the second you can. That's not a problem, okay? So that is the typical rotation for an Outlaw Rogue in a single target fight. Let's go over to a multi-target fight over here, and we can get basically just a general idea as to what we are doing in Mythic Plus. Now, Mythic Plus, I like to use Marked for Death. Just typically, I don't really change in Mythic Plus what I'm doing. I just keep Marked for Death, keep it simple, keep it nice and easy. So, in Mythic Plus, you can go ahead and ideally keep your targets in range like that. The tank typically will group up their targets, so it should make it nice and easy. If you're using Lightless Force as an enchant in your Mythic Plus, you'll want to have your targets in line of sight like that so that you can do extra damage. Now, one of my trinkets is a cone effect damage, so I like to try and keep all my targets in a cone effect like range as I'm fighting in Mythic Plus specifically. Past that, our rotation is really quite simple. The thing you have to bear in mind with Mythic Plus is you're not going to be able to get a perfect rotation every time, alright? So as long as you have the basics down, you're kind of good to go in Mythic Plus. You can go ahead and try and use Adrenaline Rush before you go into Stealth and Roll Bones and everything like that. That's actually going to be a hard thing to do, given that tanks move pretty gosh darn quickly in Mythic Plus. So this is the rotation that I personally like to go for as a result of tanks moving quite quickly and not trying to like just basically getting the perfect rotation every time. You're there for your utility, for your kicks, your stuns, everything like that. So just bear that in mind. If you haven't got Shiv on your taskbar already, go ahead and get Shiv on your taskbar. It's vital in Mythic Plus. If a target enrages, you can unenrage them. You can get rid of that enrage by simply shiving them. So in Halls of Atonement, when the bears turn huge and do absolutely loads of damage to the tanks and they have to try and kite them, very easy. You just simply shiv one and stun the other. The tank can do DPS with you at that point. Super, super easy. And it's vital to be doing this type of stuff. So go ahead and make sure you're doing that. Okay? So at this point, what I like to do is 10 seconds before the fight, use my Marked for Death, which gives them basically a full combo points. So I got full combo points at this point. And then about 2 seconds before pull, I pop Roll the Bones and Slice and Dice in Stealth. Roll the Bones, Slice and Dice, open with Ambush, Adrenaline Rush, Vanish, Ambush, Between the Eyes, use your Covenant abilities. Obviously, make sure that you've got Blade Flurry active before you use your Blade Rush. I stupidly didn't because I was too in the raid mode at the time, but that's completely fine. And just keep simply going ahead and refreshing those at every opportunity you can. Now we've got another Marked for Death, so go ahead and make sure you keep your Marked for Death up at all times. You can do crazy cleave DPS, so that's like we were on like 6.7k DPS at one point there, just as a result of simply just being able to cleave so easily with Blade Flurry, Blade Rush. Always make sure that Blade Flurry goes on before Blade Rush. That is so important. But past that, obviously, to keep an eye out on interrupts. Keep your Tricks of the Trade up. Feel free to Tricks of the Trade in Stealth before you start your rotation. That can really help the tank manage aggro, especially if you are doing Blade Flurry, multi-target DPS. sometimes the tank can struggle to hold DPS on absolutely everything if you attack a little bit too quickly. So yeah, that is the rotation you'll typically use. Let's do it one more time for just good measure. Now, there is a little trick you want to be doing in Mythic Plus is if there's a low health target, go ahead and use your Marked for Death on the low health target. This is because every time a target dies with Marked for Death on, it resets the cooldown for Marked for Death. So say you had 10 targets lined up in a row, yeah, let's say 5 targets, yeah, we'll go for 5 targets, and they've all got 100 health and no one else is doing DPS. You put Marked for Death, you hit them once, Marked for Death is off again, you do it again and again and again, and you can basically recycle a full dispatch every single time and give yourself a huge amount of DPS. It's super, super good to do it like that. Okay, so always make sure your Marked for Death goes on a low health target. You can even put it on a low health target, then swap back to the high health target and just keep doing it like that as and when targets die. It's a good way to recycle your full combo point strategy, okay? And it can hugely increase your DPS. So we're going to go ahead and do that right now. The macro I'm using for my tricks of trade is, let's have a look. Tricks of trade, hashtag show tooltip / cast at focus tricks of trade. And I just focus the tank every single time super easily. Okay, so let's do that one more time. We put the Marked for Death on. We wait, you know, that's 10 seconds before pull. We get a 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, activate. Adrenaline rush goes on. You vanish, ambush again. Between the eyes, obviously Blade Flurry. And go ahead and just start absolutely smashing your keyboard to get as many dispatches out as you can. And refresh everything on your cooldowns. As and when your cooldowns come back off for things like vanish, go ahead and use those again. And as you can see, I'm going ahead and using my Marked for Death on cooldown every opportunity I can, because that just gives us a huge amount of DPS. Make sure your roll bonus stays up, and that should be really all nice and lovely jubbly. Done. Okay, so that is the typical rotation you'll be using in Mythic Plus. I typically, in every Mythic Plus, I go up to about, I'd say, Mythic Plus 13. That is usually, I'm usually top DPS in those. But past that, you know, that's when I think classes like the Mage and the Hunter can really shine through with their multi-target DPS. And that's completely fine. You know, the Rogue is capped to certain amounts of targets. And so is the Hunter and Mage, but not for some spells. So that is certainly a good way to go ahead. Alright guys, if you've got any feedback for me, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you very much for watching the video. This has been Erosium, and I will see you next time. This is Erosium. Just a quick note before I go, I always suggest to make sure you get your enchants sorted. I put Sinful Revelation for single target fights in raiding specific. On my offhand, my dagger, because it's quick, and then for the main hand I use Celestial Guidance. If I'm just focusing purely on Mythic Plus, then I'll go ahead and I will use Lightless Force on my main hand and Celestial Guidance on my offhand. That is absolutely vital for Mythic Plus, but for if you're just focusing on a single target for raiding, then go ahead and use Celestial on your main hand, Sinful on your offhand. Thanks for watching. This is Erosium.